What is happening, super fans? You're listening to Behind the Mask, the show where we chat with your favorite superhero fiction authors about the worlds and heroes they're writing. Behind the Mask is brought to you by the amazing folks over at superherofiction.com. I'm your host, Franklin Kendrick, and today on the show, I am excited to be chatting with author Christa Tomlinson. Welcome, Christa.
Hi.
Very glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. So I'll jump right into the first question, which is, when you're not a superhero author behind the keyboard and you're out in the real world with a secret identity, who are you?
Well, a regular me has not been doing much lately because, she's under quarantine. So I've really just been kind of hanging out. But most of the time, what I've done in previous lifetimes, I've been a roller derby player. I played roller derby for Houston Roller Derby for several years, and it was an awesome time. I loved it. It was amazing to kind of be my own superhero because you have your cool name and you have your uniform and you're doing all these athletic things on the track. So that was a fun time. And then also, I've also been a teacher in the past. I taught history and economics and things like that for seniors. So those are the two main things that I have done outside of writing. And then within writing, I've been doing that, since 2014. So.
Oh my gosh. That's excellent. That's very varied things the first one could be dangerous, depending.
Yeah, it was. I had several injuries. That's why I had to retire. I broke my leg in several places, and that was the least fun part of my. Actually, it's kind of what pushed me into writing more because I was stuck on the couch for an entire summer with a broken leg and ankle. So I guess I shouldn't be too upset about it, but it would have been nice if that had come about in a different way.
Yeah, like everything happens for a reason, but man, did that have to be the jumping off point?
Right. Yeah, exactly. They have to be that reason.
So I guess that could be part of the answer to the next question. But if you want to elaborate, what got you into writing originally, just in general, and then what convinced you to work in the superhero fiction genre?
Well, I've wanted to write since middle school. I've always wanted to write romance novels. That was always my goal. My older sister got me into reading them probably way younger than I should have been reading them. And so from then, almost immediately, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. But of course, it takes you don't really know how to make that happen. And, you have to get a real job. And so I did the teaching and all of that first. And so again, like I mentioned, I was on the couch for an entire summer. And so that gave me time to just kind of really get serious about finishing something. So I wrote a fan fiction, actually, and I published that, and it did really well. And it gave me a lot of confidence to try and go and really work on self-publishing, because I had published a novella with an online publisher before, and it did well, but I was, it still didn't give me enough confidence to really go for it like the fan fiction did. And so after that, I really started publishing. I got into self-publishing and kind of learned how that worked. And but what's funny is it didn't occur to me to write anything superhero related until about 3 years ago, probably 2017, even though I'd been watching superhero cartoons forever, since, a kid in the 80s, and watching the entire MCU and just all of that. And then one day I was like, you know what? If I like these superheroes so much, maybe I should try writing some. And so that's where I got the idea to kind of to do my own romance superhero series. I think about 2017 is where the idea finally struck me.
That's awesome. So I do have a fan fiction question for you, because when I was in school, I also was like, yeah, I'm going to write fan fiction, and that's how I sort of learned. How long was your fan fiction that you published? Was it like one of those epic sprawling things?
It was. My first fan fiction was like 145,000 words. Like, why would you do that? Like, start off small, but no, I just went for it. I wrote this giant 145,000 word fan fiction for John Cena and CM Punk, because I'm also a wrestling nerd.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That sounds perfect.
So that was my very first fan fiction. I'm just like, I cannot believe that this was your jumping off point. So, but yeah, that's how I got started.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's amazing. It's so hilarious to me because fan fiction used to have such a stigma around it, where it was
Hmm.
like, oh, you wrote fan fiction, but like it's such a good way to learn without like the fear of coming up with it all on your own. So you kind of like
Yeah.
you learn the basics, and
Hmm.
it's like when you teach a child to ride a bike, you don't tell them also go make the bike
You're
and
right,
then figure out how the
exactly.
mechanics are. It's like you figure it out like step by step. And I feel like it was also a good experience for me too, to just be like, okay, because you get used to and it was a long time back. So like digital publishing was just like unheard of as
Right.
far as like making money off of it. So
Hmm.
it sort of like prepped me to be like, yeah, you can get instant feedback. And like
Hmm.
if you're writing a work in progress, you can people react and tell you like, yes, this is great. No, what do you think you're doing? Don't go in this direction.
Right. You're like, oh, is this really where you want to take this?
Yeah. So it's good. It was good motivation. And it was good a trial run to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I was really happy when it was like, oh, self-publishing is a thing now, and you don't have to order a giant box of books and then
Right.
try to sell them.
Yeah. And try to sell them out of the back of your car in the
Oh my
Barnes and
gosh.
Noble parking lot or something.
Oh boy. And I had this is it's sort of a tangent, but I had one when I was in college, one year for my birthday. I had some friends that were really amazing, and they were like, let's go to the bookstore. We'll buy you whatever book you want. And I
Hmm.
had picked out a how to self-publish your own stuff, and it was like 2010, so it was like
Oh.
right as Kindle was becoming a thing. So it's
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, no, I was like, even before I was like, yeah, we'll do it, it was like still they had like 5 chapters on like, here's how you're going to format your paperback, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh
So
goodness, yeah. Those early books, Lam, when you look back at them, it's like the information is so dated, but like it was really helpful when you were just getting started, and everybody was kind of learning and figuring that out as they all went together. So those were helpful. But yeah, if you look at them now, you're like, what?
yeah, I would never do that now. No. Oh goodness. Well, I'll turn the conversation back onto your books.
Okay.
So I know you have a bunch of different series in your whole career that you have so far, but I'll leave it to you to pick out the one that you would like to talk about. If you want to give us sort of an overview of what it's about, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm currently writing and publishing my superhero romance series, and the first one came out last year in October. Actually, I think it's like the same time around this time last year. The first one came out, and that one was Blaze, which is it's a romance novel. And with that one, what I wanted to do was to write. Because Batman is one of my favorite characters. So I wanted to write like a Batman type character, but I didn't want to give him a Catwoman type character as he's normally paired with. I wanted him to have someone who was just like completely opposite and just like the character who kind of is always needing to get rescued.
Yeah.
So that's who I paired him with for this one. So it was definitely the type of like, oh my god, he's in danger again. Let me go jump off a bridge and save him or something. So that was the first book. And it was just so fun writing it because I'd never got a chance to write anything like that before. I had really only written contemporary up until that point. So it was really fun to just kind of just go all out with giving this guy superpowers and coming up with the costumes and villains and all that type of stuff. So that first book is kind of like the introduction to the series. He's the loner in the series, but he's kind of the one to introduce all the other characters, and then that's when like their league forms,
Mhm.
and that's when from then on. So I'm working on the second book now, and this one is more of a probably kind of like the two rival superheroes who there's like the straight laced character and then there's the character who's always wanting to go their own way type thing. So that's what the second book is, and it's they're all going to be connected with the overarching story throughout the series, but they're also just kind of on their own so that you can kind of jump in wherever you want in the series and pick out which characters you want to read if you didn't want to start from book one to go all the way through. So that's what I'm working on now.
Cool. I feel like some of the Well, I've read general romance
Mm-hmm.
series before, and I like how you can kind of skip around and you're like not penalized for uh like follow. You're like, oh, I'm interested in reading the story of these two characters now for
Mm-hmm.
this one. So it's like you jump like two books ahead, and you can always go back and you once you see, in my case, I always end up seeing the characters that they're like, yeah, in the previous book, these two characters got together, and I'm like, man, I should have just read them through. But
It's like, oh, I really like this couple. They're so fun in the background. I guess I'm gonna have
yeah,
to go back and read their story.
yeah. So I always end up looping back, but I'm always like a sucker for I look at the covers and then I read the blurbs. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, no, I'm just gonna skip ahead, and I usually always loop back. So I like how that's sort of the structure that you're aiming for, because
Hmm.
it 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 all works together, but it's not so much like, oh my gosh, everything, if you miss one book,
You're
then you're
completely
not going to know what's
lost.
going on.
Yeah,
Because
I didn't want to write it that way. That's, I think, well, one, I think that is currently beyond my capabilities. I haven't written anything like that before. But just, it just seems like it would be for romance, it would be harder for to kind of really maintain that for the audience, because they really want to have that. Their main thing is the couple. They really want to
mhm,
see what's happening with that couple and seeing them fall in love, and then everything else is just kind of like the cherry on the top of the sundae. So you don't want to keep dragging that out too much and too long, because they really want to see what's happening with the couple, so that kind of leaves you not as much room to play with the rest of the storyline, because again, you
mhm.
don't want to make it, I don't want to write another 145,000 story. Those days are over. I'm not writing anything that long again. So, so I've got to, once you have the romance in there, and that leaves me just a little bit of time to play with. So I can't really put too much of this big giant story in there, but it has to fit this couple's, what's happening with them as far as their plot line. So yes, I think they would just be easier to just kind of keep the stories mostly contained within each novel for the series.
Mhm. And I have a romance specific question
Okay.
for you. So, well, it's sort of like a two questions maybe. So for your characters, because a romance really, the drama is about whether the characters are going to get together and
Hmm.
can they overcome their differences or their obstacles. Does that mean that in your series, is there villains that also come into like a traditional
Hmm.
style villains? Are
Hmm.
they still exist?
Yeah, I do. I definitely have this the traditional style villains. So for in the first book, the villain is a childhood friend of the heroes, and their lives kind of like diverged when they were, I think, in their senior year. They kind of had a falling out, and then one guy went this way and the other guy went the other way, and so they've just kind of been constantly fighting. And as 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 the superhero got stronger and as the villain got more power with his kind of, I guess he's kind of like a just an all around gangster type criminal. So that's so as he gets stronger and gets more power, then they're constantly fighting, and so that's where that series goes. And then for the second book, the one that I'm writing now, the character who's the one who's like constantly wanting to do their own thing, the rebel hero, they are an exotic dancer, and I've created this world which is really kind of based on the area of the Moulin Rouge, because I love
Ooh,
that movie. So
yeah.
it's I kind of created like this playground area. It's the series is set in St. Louis, which is where I'm originally from, and so I kind of created this area that's like just a giant adult playground, and there's a kind of like and I can't even think of what they're called, like maybe just like a conservative mom group that wants to like shut it down, and so that's who the villain is in the in the
Oh
second
my gosh.
series.
I love it. That's
Thanks.
awesome.
So yeah, so it's basically like this entire group of like exotic dancers and just like all these type of people, and they're fighting against like this conservative mom group who's like, oh, we really need to shut this down, and like maybe build a park or something. And that's where but there's, of course, they're all tied into the series villain as well. So
Cool. So for your heroes and your leads, your couples, do you start out by picking a trope for them, or do they just kind of organically come to you?
I think that I probably pick the trope first. Like I think that I pick the trope and then kind of build the characters around it because I don't want to have the same trope throughout the series. Like each book,
Mhm.
I want each book to be a little bit different. So I kind of sat down and was like, okay, for this, if I wanted to do this trope, who would match this? And then kind of pick the characters that I think would go well with that and build it from there. So yeah, so actually there's this site that I can't remember the author's name, but she has a list of pretty much every trope you could, go through. And so I have it printed out. I printed it out and it's in my binder that I keep for all of the, potential ideas. And I just kind of run through it every now and then and like, oh, I haven't written this trope before, or this trope would be fun, or let me see how I could twist this and make this with superheroes. And that's kind of what I did is I sat down and I just came up with a trope for each book and then put a couple to match each one.
Coolness.
Mhm.
So for powers, how is it? Is it a secret plot point how the characters get their powers or why they have them?
No, I think each character gets them in different ways. So some of them are born with their powers, and some of them got them because of a traumatic event. There's always got to be some some origin story or something horrible happened. The next thing you know, they're shooting electricity out of their fingers. So so it just depends on the characters. I think for the first book, of course, there was just just the one hero, and he his were from a traumatic event. And then for the book I'm writing now, there was like a science experiment gone wrong for one hero, and the other hero, he's more of a kind of a mutant type character where he just wakes up with them one day. So I couldn't really, it was just like, I just wanted him to just be a normal kid doing his thing. And then all of a sudden he's like, his life changes and he can't be a dancer, a classical dancer anymore, because now all of a sudden he's got this superpower that's really interfering with it. And that's what kind of leads him to becoming an exotic dancer, because you can, kind of work with it a little bit more there. So yeah, so each character kind of gets their powers in different ways.
I thought that one sounds funny, but then also like it makes me think back like, yeah, that is very realistic, because there are times where you're growing and then you think you're going to do one thing, and then the people around you all of a sudden are like, what? You've never tried to do this? Didn't you know that this is what you should be doing? And you're like, oh, I never would have gone in this path. So I feel like the mutants, that's like what happens to them, where it's like now your body is finally telling you, okay, no, you're not going to be a dancer like this. You're going to be this kind of dancer instead.
Right, you're going to do something else. Like, I know that was your original plan, but we've got something else in store for you. So.
Goodness. So the world, you sort of already partially answered this for location, but the world that your romance series takes place in, is just the city, a fictionalized city in like our normal world, or is the world itself like a fictionalized version of our Earth with like crazy things happening?
Yeah, it's basically a fictionalized version of our Earth. I set it in St. Louis, like I mentioned, because that's where I'm from. I grew up in St. Louis. I didn't move to Texas until I was 2024 or so. So I know St. Louis really well. But there was actually this conversation that I was having with a coworker back when I was teaching. We were just talking about how superhero movies are always set in, New York or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's true. I said, because there was the part where X-Men, I think is it the first one? I think it's the first one. I haven't seen it in so long now, where Wolverine does the spin around the Statue of Liberty with his claws and he slices off the tip. And I was like, we have the Arch in St. Louis. How come we can't have a superhero spinning around that thing? And so that's what made me set it in St. Louis. But of course I had to, make it a little fictionalized for the superheroes to make sense. So it's a little bit of a fictionalized world. And there's a little bit of like the area that I mentioned for the exotic dancers and the adult playground, obviously that doesn't really exist.
Oh
So I know, right? We can't go there. Sorry.
uh,
I did a little bit of changing for things like that, but basically it's St. Louis, but a fictionalized version.
nice. I feel like that's one thing that the indie authors have been able to latch onto, and it adds so much like flavor to the genre, no matter what style of superhero storytelling is. Be like everybody that I've talked to has come from like a different part of the country or the world. So
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you take the heroes out of like whatever typical city, it's like it adds so much like I don't know. It makes it feel more realistic to me because I feel like even though I've only been to New York like a handful of times, I feel like I know it so well that it's like, oh geez, they're in New York.
Yeah.
They're all the famous locations are there. But then like you took a place that like, yes, you can easily look it up, and I mean it has like monuments and things that everybody would
Mm-hmm.
recognize, but like you wouldn't instantly think like, yeah, that's where superheroes live. So it's kind of like it's interesting to see these characters put into a place that's not like a seaside like giant
Yeah,
metropolis.
yeah, exactly. It's like, there's so many other places, and I get it. I understand why they're, always going to be set in New York. But when you have room to play, like you said, if you're an indie author, you've got room to play and lots of different places you can set it. You can create your own city. Like, you have so many different options. And, so I just thought I would just give a shout out to my hometown and just, have superheroes swinging around stuff up there.
Oh yeah. Plus, yeah, it also it's nifty because you have your own experiences from living. It's not like you're going to like Google Maps and being like, let's figure out the street names and where everything is. You know it well enough that you can make up places like the adult playground where you're like, this
Yeah.
would be, I would put this right here.
Exactly. It does make it a little bit easier instead of having to build something completely from scratch, or like you said, if you just don't even know the area. Like if I were to try to set something in Los Angeles, that would just be a nightmare for me because I've never been there. And I mean, I've seen TV shows that are always set there, so you can look at that and Google Maps, like you said, but it wouldn't feel authentic to me, and I think it would be hard to write. Whereas with St. Louis, I can just picture something and just remember what it looks like, or get on the phone, tell my dad to, hey, go drive down there and give me a camera shot of that.
Yeah. It's also good for just like, I think I've only written a couple of stories where I tried to do the whole write about a place that I don't really know very well. And the thing that I get hung up on so much is how long it takes to travel distances. I would feel so ridiculous when I find out that like, oh yeah, that thing that I thought was a 10-minute drive is like a 45-minute drive with traffic.
Right.
Whoops.
Yeah. Like, oh, good. So, well, you just try to leave it vague. Like, and then they were there.
Yeah, I'll do a cut and then we'll pick up in the next paragraph.
Exactly.
So my next question for you is, what are some of the things that inspired you to write this current superhero series?
Well, I mentioned my fan fiction background, and I'm a big giant shipper. It's in my Twitter bio that I'm a shipper. So I love, seeing all these different, couples and all the different fandoms that I'm in. And so, I knew that they weren't going to go there, obviously, not in the big giant Marvel property. But the Winter Soldier and Steve Rogers should have had a romance. And by gum, I'm going to give them one. So,
yeah.
So that's basically kind of what inspired me. It's like, you have these series and I understand why it happens with a lot of these properties. Most of the characters are all men, and so you have like the one special girl and then like 7 dudes. So it's like you're gonna have you're gonna have fans who are shipping these characters together. But so far, we're not really going to have anything in a mainstream property where that's actually going to happen. And so since I'm always writing and reading fan fiction, I thought, well, it would just be nice if we were just actually to just have that happen. Let's just have these superheroes. This is what's going to happen. They're going to actually come together just like we would like to see them happen on mainstream properties, but can't. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's really what kind of got me inspired to write that. just from seeing, just from seeing all the big fandoms and all the people who are shipping all these different characters and want them to get together, but it's not going to happen. Like, well, you know what? I've got some people over here who are like these guys that are in my book, and they do get together. So, and I'm going to give this is my gift to fandom. So that's really kind of what inspired me to make that happen, was just to see that actually play out. They come so close. They play with it, and they give them these amazing storylines and relationships where if one of the characters was a woman, that they probably would have ended up together, but since they're both guys, then it doesn't. And so, I'm just going to take that final jump for them.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. I feel like you're definitely not alone, because when you rewatch some of those scenes with them, and you're like, why is he getting out of the car to go kiss the blonde girl? Like, I know in the comics it's a big deal. He didn't even have any time with her.
Right.
I would have been like, we're backing this car up and we're just going on our own.
Right, it makes no sense. Like, they had one on screen, and it's funny because they throw the romances in there a lot of times just to kind of, I think, because it feels like they're supposed to, or they feel like it needs to happen. But since it's not the main point of the story, it seems so rushed, and there's no real connection, and there's no real buildup, and there's no real tension. So those romances that play out in the big properties really just, they don't satisfy a lot of fans. And I get it, because that's not their main goal. Their main goal of the movie is not to write a romance movie, but it would match so well if they were to just put it with the main characters, but since they're not going to do that. So I think fandom would really love to see stuff, those type of romances play out on screen or play out in the big comics. But yeah, since they can't dedicate that time to them, and they just kind of, like, oh, there was this one girl over here and she was cute. Let's have him smile at her, at halfway through the movie, and then at the end of the movie they're gonna kiss, and everybody's like, what?
Yeah, that was mine. I mean, I did read the comics for those characters before, so I was more connected to them based on what I didn't see on screen.
Yeah.
So it was such a weird experience to be like, I know what really happens to you two, and I would love to see that happen, but no, this is not what you have built up with just this self-contained movie. So
yeah, it's a lot harder to do, because there's just not enough time for them to do it, because that's not their main goal. So, but then they don't want to leave it out. Like, I would prefer a lot of times if they did just leave it out, because then it wouldn't feel so weird. But romance sells, so what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So I have a shipping, well, it's not really a shipping question, but it's related to shipping. So where do you think, I mean, what was the point where you think, or maybe even you personally, started noticing, like, hey, Steve and Bucky have more going on than what they're saying? Like, what was the point for you where you were like, this could be a thing? Why aren't they just, well, we know why they're not going with it, but the actors clearly are like, yeah, they're giving it their all and it's not going that way, or the editors are like, nope, this
Right, like, whoa, guys, tone it down. I think for me, probably, I mean, when I first saw Captain America: The First Avenger, I wasn't really that into it. Like, it was okay, but since it's an origin movie, it was a little dry for me at first. And I didn't really know the character Captain America that well at that point. He wasn't one of the comic characters that I was, really attached to. And so it was a little dull. And so when the Winter Soldier came out, I actually wasn't going to go see it. I was at home with my friend and my niece was going to see it, but my friend had come over to watch wrestling. So we were just sitting there on the couch watching Raw, and my niece went to the movies, and I was like, you know what, she's going by herself, let's go with her. And so we got up and we just surprised her at the theater. And like 15 minutes in, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. And so but by the time that Winter Soldier ended, I was like, this follows the trope of the reunited lovers exactly. Like, I don't understand how did they do that on purpose? Because that's what they're doing here. It's I lost my lover and now he's back and now we're enemies enemies and now we're going to eventually, come back together again. And like their storyline follows that exactly. And so by the time I was finished with The Winter Soldier, I walked out of the theater stucky, like that was it. I was there for like the second that I walked out of the theater. So I think that shows that the writing for the story was really well done because it's easy to pick up on the trope if you recognize it, and the actors have really good chemistry with each other. They really did well, bringing the emotion of, this is my friend and I lost them and how do I gain them, and then of course you've got poor tortured Bucky over here and he's looking all vulnerable. Everyone's going to go for that. The tortured hero. They're always going to go for that, and they want him to be rescued, of course. And so I think they did such an excellent job with that it's really hard not to pick up on it. If you're, even if you're not a shipper, you're still going to really be into that relationship because they did such a good job of being emotional with it and really bringing the friendship forward. That if you're a shipper, you're going to take it to the next step. But if you're not, you're really going to like that friendship. So yeah, definitely by the time The Winter Soldier was over, that was all I needed.
Excellent. So I'll turn it back to your characters. Is one of your characters like the tortured soul that needs to be brought back?
Yes, but I can't tell who it is because
don't say. Okay, fine.
It's a giant spoiler, so I can't tell you. But I do have that type of character and that romance trope in the series. So it's there. And like I said, it was what inspired the series. Kind of almost pretty much, everybody else came after I already had that idea. So I do have the character who has to be brought back and saved. I can't say who it is.
For the listeners out there, that's all you got. You got to go read it. So
yeah, you have to stick with me through a couple of books to figure out who it is.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. So all right. I'm sold. So my next question is, well, I guess it could be for one of it could be your second book that you're working on or future books that you have planned, but because I don't know how much outlining you do ahead of time on what you plan, but do you have a favorite plot line that you have come up with, or do you have I guess it could be a romance twist that you came to mind that you thought, oh my goodness, like this is going down in my notes immediately so I don't lose it?
I would say probably I think the first one that I wrote is dear to my heart because it's the hero is based off Batman, and that's my favorite superhero. And then the second one, I really like the characters, like the guy who's the exotic dancer. He's just such a snarky, so he's one of my favorites. But I think the third book is probably the one that I'm most excited to write, and I like that plot line because there's going to be there's a character who's cursed. And so he's been frozen in time for a while. And so he's going to have to kind of learn how to be in our modern times, because when he was doing his normal human thing, it was back in the steamboat days on the Mississippi. So this character having to come forward and into our modern times and adjust, and then the character that he's paired with, he's an empath, and so but he doesn't want to be a hero. He's the guy in the chair in the series, and so just to see this character get kind of shoved out of their comfort zone, and just to instead of staying in back at the headquarters all the time, and then and it's totally about technology, and doesn't really believe in magic and stuff like that, being paired with this character who's been cursed, and so he's all about magic, because obviously he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for magic. And so having these two complete opposite things kind of bash against each other. And then also, this is going to be my first character I'm writing that's I wouldn't go so far as to say they're a true monster, because I don't like icky things. I like things to be pretty and cute. So I'm not going to write like a scary, horrible monster, but they are, but they're kind of the title of the story is Beast. So they're
Okay.
so they're a little bit of a beast. They've got a tail and wings. So that's my first time writing something like that. So that's the one that I'm probably most excited to get to. So.
They're a beast, but in like romance fashion, they're an attractive beast.
Right, yeah, they're an attractive beast. They've got long hair and like a scruffy beard, not like boils and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Oh goodness, it's like my like. Well, it's not really a secret to people that know me, but like I love the love stories. I love the like romance genre. I don't read as much of it as I probably should, just because I get so sidetracked, and it's such a huge place. So it's like, oh, what do I pick? I don't know. But like
so much.
even on like TV and stuff, like this is a really tangent story, but I for years watched Downton Abbey, and I was like sucked in by all of the characters, love, romance, like plots. Like it took 3 seasons for some of them to get together, and it's like, oh, and I had friends that were like, why do you watch this? Like what?
But there's so much romantic drama. Why aren't you watching it?
Like how they're like, this must be so boring. But then I finally got them to sit down and watch it with me, and it was like and I skipped. It was like a really interesting like sort of like case study for me, where it was like, what is this friend gonna latch onto?
Yeah.
And of course they latched onto a couple who were already together, and they were like, this couple's great. How did they get together? And I'm like, well, you want to know? You got to watch the story. So it's like,
hard.
It's even people that say that they're not fans of the romance genre. It's like, we're human beings. We're designed to have relationships. So it's like, even when you're like, oh no, it's not my thing. Like, you never know when it's going to like strike you to be like, oh, these 2 characters, I need to like follow them.
Are they going to stay together? What's going to happen? We as people, like you said, we care about relationships. We want to see what happens when there's a relationship, something interpersonal, whether it's romance or not. We care more about it than just some person off by themselves with no attachment to anything. Like that's a little more dull to watch. But when they've got stakes and personal issues and people that make them either a better person or a worse person, then that's what really gets people involved. And so, like you said, the romance genre, people kind of like have a stigma about it, like, oh, it's just boy meets girl and he loses the girl and they get back together. It's all the same, blah, blah, blah. But it's really not. I mean, that's the formula, obviously, but like every genre has a formula. Like, would you read a horror story without a murderer? Would you read a thriller story without a case to solve? Like, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. You're like, so what are you reading then? It's just a guy walking around. So, I mean, every genre has its like formula that it follows. So I'm not quite sure why we kind of rag on romance. But like the romance is what gets people involved in other genres. It's what makes them care. So yeah. So it would be nice if people would stop saying that, but it's probably not going to happen anytime soon.
Oh goodness, yeah. So for the readers out there that are skeptical, I say, give it a shot. You never know. It may be the next thing that sucks you in forever.
Exactly. Just try it and see what happens.
Yeah. And if it could be as simple as finding a blend of like a genre like superhero fiction that you have already enjoyed, and then finding characters that in another medium you would have loved to get together, but in this medium they will. So
you're right.
I love it. Oh goodness. So technically you do have a few books planned for the series. Do you want to say how many books you expect you will do? And if there's anything, I mean, you've already kind of teased a lot, so I don't know how much more you want to tease. But if there's anything that you can say for people that have read the first book or who are going to read the first book, what they can look forward to?
So the goal, I had to bring myself back because I mean, I've had so many different couples and plots. I was like, oh, I need to end this at some point. So the goal is 7 books for the series, with the plan to be finished within the next 2 years, because I kind of want to stick with this series and finish it. So 7 books is what I plan to do. With each book has a different couple, but again, I mentioned the overarching series, and the big boss villain will be taken care of at the end, of course. So things that you can look forward to for the series is just kind of seeing how the heroes come together more, because in the first book, they really just kind of help each other out, like, hey, you happen to be in the neighborhood and there's this burning building, can you come help me with it, type of thing. And then the second book, they actually come together and form a solidified unit. And as the series goes on, it becomes more, found family, which is something that I love to write and read and see and everything. I love found family so much, and they become like that over time. Throughout each book, they become closer. They help each other more. They start to learn, why that they shouldn't work together just because it's good for the city, but because they're helping each other out and they care. So you'll see that happen throughout the series. So you become closer as superheroes and as friends, and then eventually as the found family. So you can definitely look forward to that. And then if you like a type of villain who's I wouldn't say I would say the villain is more of a Lex Luthor, but drawing more from our society type of these giant billionaire corporation people. That's what I'm drawing from for the main villain for the series. So if you want to, if you're all about eat the rich, like people always say, then you might want to pay attention and really enjoy the series, because that's where I'm going with this. That's where my villain is coming from.
Cool. I am also a sucker for that, because I loved Lex Luthor on Smallville, and I loved his dad because I could never trust either of them. But you're like, I wish they would just go away. But as soon as you get rid of them, it's like, well, their business. Who is going to run it? Someone has to.
Someone has to.
Oh my gosh, no. We need their money and all of their stuff. We can just get rid of them, put somebody good in. Great.
Yeah. How do you maintain, that much wealth and that much power without letting it corrupt you? I mean, is that possible? I don't know. So that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with this for this series. So just seeing them grow and become partners and become a family. That's really what I want to definitely focus on for the group. So I think that's important. I don't want them to just like each book, okay, now these guys are fighting together. The next book, oh, now these guys are fighting together. I want to really see them just become, a unified bunch. I want them to be friends. I want them to care about each other by the time we're at book 7. If one of them is in danger or really hurt, it's not like, oh, we've got to go save him. It's I've got to save my friend, So that's where I'm going.
Very cool. Oh, excellent. So, well, I guess my next question is kind of doesn't really apply yet, but since you have one book out and the rest are following, I will tell the readers, start with this first one and look forward to the next ones.
Definitely it does.
Yeah, depending on when you listen. If you listen way in the future and it's like next year, if it's 2021, go get the other books.
Right. Yeah, you can just jump in wherever, but you'll definitely be better off if you start from the first one. But yeah, so the second one, that one should be out in the first week the first week in January is when I plan that one, and that one's Dr. Z. So that's going to be my next book, and then I think that I'm looking at my calendar on the wall in front of me. Beast should be out, the one with the clean cut monster. That one should be out in March, March.
Excellent. So I have one question that is not on my list, but I had somebody suggest it to me, and I should just add it when I email everybody. But is there anything before we wrap up and tell readers where to go to find your books that I have not asked you that you would like to put out into the world?
Let's see. Well, if they enjoy genres other than superheroes and would like to read some more sci-fi space opera type things, I have another series. And now my brain just blanked on what it's called. Oh, Star Force Fighters, which that one came about because, well, up until the last season, but the Voltron reboot, I loved it so much. And so I thought that would be fun to kind of write a romance kind of based off of that. And so if you like Voltron or Gundam and stuff like that, and you would like to see some people falling in love while flying mechs around space, then definitely check out that one because that was a lot of fun to write. So that one has 2 books. So it's I think Stardust Dreams and Cosmic Desire, because you got to have the fancy romance names.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So yeah, definitely check that one out. And then if you like superheroes, of course, then Blaze is there waiting for you.
Absolutely. So before I wrap it all up, let us know where can we find your books, and if you want to be found on the internet, where can readers find you?
So right now I'm exclusive to Amazon. So my books are in Kindle Unlimited. So if you go to Amazon and type in Christa Tomlinson, then my books will come up. You can also go to my website, which is christatomlinson.com. And there you can, if you want to check out my superheroes, I've got some extra little bits on there. Like I created little superhero cards that list all their powers and their scale, where they're at on the scale of strength and stuff like that, because it was partly for work and business, but also I was really procrastinating one day. I was like, what would be fun? So I did that. So you can check all that kind of stuff out and just kind of see what's going on with my heroes. And then if you really want to follow me on social media and see who I'm going crazy over shipping at the moment, I'm on Twitter. That's where I'm at pretty much all day. And my Twitter handle, if you type in Christa Tomlinson, I will come up. But my Twitter handle is ShockZ314 because my Derby name, which is when I first created that Twitter handle, was Shocker Zulu, and 314 is the area code for St. Louis. So that's where my Twitter handle comes from. And I've just never changed it. So yeah, so I'm ShockZ314 on Twitter, but if you type in Christa Tomlinson, you'll find me.
Excellent. So for the listeners out there, you know where to go. Go do it. Go subscribe, and because you're going to want to know when the new books come out. So go follow, go add to the list.
Yes, definitely. I hope they do. Just definitely come follow me on Twitter. I'm always chatting on there. I'm currently, what am I talking about right now? I don't even know. I'm sure that it's going to, the new show that Netflix is about to put out with the Greek gods. I'm ready for that one. October 27th, it comes out. That's, goodness gracious, it's a Son of Zeus or something like that. I'm really ready for that. So I'm already ready to ship whoever's going to be on there.
Oh my gosh.
So please follow me and you'll see who I'm getting ready to write some fan fiction about.
Yes. And then you can fight for, your own ship that you're like, no, this is where it's at.
Yeah, let's get on there and have some ship war talk. Let's do it.
Yes. We need more of it. Come on. Goodness. Well, I'm going to wrap it all up for the listeners. It's been really fun chatting. I can chat forever though. So I'm lucky that I have a script that I follow. Otherwise, I will just go. But so definitely a genuine pleasure. I had a wonderful time chatting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I had fun talking with you. This was very nice and relaxing. So it was nice to be on here.
Excellent. I'm glad. So for the listeners out there, I'll wrap it all up for you guys. Wherever you're listening, whether it's on YouTube or your favorite podcast site or app, please make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, because there will be more. Make sure you give us a like. Let us know what you think by commenting. If you talk about spoilers, just leave a spoiler tag. So if somebody has not read, they can scroll by, or if they're just a glutton for punishment, they can read everything and then go back and read the book. So as always, just want to thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate all of you, whether you're new or old to the podcast, and I will see you all next time.